Jolly, my friend, welcome to Mea Culpa. First time I got a virgin with us here on Mea Culpa today. Met Jolly over at the Substack Gala event. He was a rock star. We had a massive amount of fun along with a whole bunch of other Substack people. But right now we have so much to talk about. Wish to God that I could sit with my listeners and have you tell them what a great time we had, but there's too much crazy shit going on. And obviously, I want to start with the obvious. 100 days in, and Trump is governing like a dictator with a Sharpie. Over 85 executive orders signed. I think the number is well over 100, but no legislation, all executive orders. So my question to you is, why are his voters still clapping like a bunch of seals while he bypasses Congress like they're nothing but a nuisance?
Because here's my theory, it has been for a long time. I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, and even as a kid, 35 years ago, the same rhetoric that Donald Trump's using now, I was hearing it. There's a war on Christianity. There's a war on white men. There's a war on heterosexuality. I've been hearing this since I was a kid. And it's almost like in my community, this has been a foregone conclusion. There's going to come a time where we got to stand up and fight back. And I believe that people see Donald Trump as the guy who's fighting for them and their mythology of whatever, this mythology of the war on Christianity, this mythology of the war against white men. And they don't actually care what he does legislative wise. They only care that he punishes the people that they hate. I stand firmly on that. This is centered around a cult ideology, a cult of personality, bigotry, and they don't even care. This guy is literally kidnapping people off the street, literally sending them to foreign prisons without due process. And oh, by the way, deportations never include foreign prisons, even with due process. So they don't care because they see immigrants and trans people and all these other marginalized communities as the reason their life is so bad. And so as long as you punish them, I'm happy.
Yeah, but here's the problem. The people, for example, at the Michigan rally, and again, I'm not 100% certain I understand the concept of having a rally on or to celebrate your 100 days in. Somebody needs to explain to the president that you don't need a rally. You are the president. And by law, by constitution, you cannot run again. So what's the purpose of that rally? I don't exactly know, to keep his base energized. But if you looked at the rally goers, they're not all male. In fact, there were an enormous number of women that were there in the audience. There were also non-whites, and I suspect non-Christians. So while I completely agree that is a segment, the white Christian nationalist male, like what we see in Gilead, right, in The Handmaid's Tale. I get it. They're disenfranchised. They feel marginalized. They have mushroom peckers like their leader. I get it. I totally get it. That's not the point. The point here is these voters, and it's like 55%, according to a CNN poll, 55% of Republicans and independent-leaning Republicans are favorable for Trump. These are the fools that I say are clapping like seals. The problem is they don't even fall into the category of the white Christian male nationalist.
Without diving down this, philosophical sidetrack, and because I do understand 100% what you're saying, but without diving into how I could philosophically explain that you don't have to be the demographic to be the victim of the ideology. But I will say this, to your point, very much to your point, it's misinformation and disinformation that is controlling the entire narrative. When you have billionaires who are buying social media platforms and blatantly putting out lies without being checked by anyone, when you got the president of the United States on national television arguing with the interviewer that a clearly photoshopped MS-13 is not Photoshop, that this is some fucking how real life. And he believes it. And then the problem is the people that follow him believe him and only him. He's made himself the single source of information. You got billionaires who capitulate to him. Jeff Bezos bent the knee at taking the tariffs off. Elon Musk puts out whatever Trump wants him to say. Trump uses his social media like a 4chan troll account. And so people don't have access to real information. They don't. And they believe that anything contrary to what Trump says is the deep state, trying to stop him from stopping them. It's conspiracy, not just ran amok, but it's conspiracy that's now people's real life view on the world. And it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it is. Meanwhile, I want to talk about that because, Trump sat down, the journalist that you're referring to is Terry Moran, and from ABC News, and he practically lost his shit over that tattoo. Young migrant, right? Kilargo Garcia, who actually fled gang violence, is now accused by Trump and his enablers of being an MS-13 gang leader, not just a gang member, but a gang leader, specifically here in New York. They claim that he runs MS-13, even though he's never been to New York. And all of this is over a fucking tattoo on his hand. Now,
Yes.
I'm with you on that because there are other pictures of Garcia, of his hand, when he's there in El Salvador in that concentration camp. The question I want to ask you, though, Jolly, what does this say about where this administration is morally and mentally?
So mentally, I'm so glad you said mentally. I'm not a doctor. I've never fucking professed to be one. Um, I watched
But
my
you've played one on
grandmother.
television. But you've played one
I
on
played one.
television.
I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Uh, fucking, I watched my grandmother, God rest her soul, suffer through Alzheimer's. I watched the early onset of it. I watched the progression of it. And we're hearing people who do understand these symptoms. They're saying, "Hey, man, this looks like a senior who's dealing with some of the symptoms of possibly or dementia, possibly sundowning, this type of thing," because we know he's got an ego, but this was different. This was, "Hey, man, in the face of blatant facts, I'm telling you that you're not. This is not correct. This is a Photoshop. No, no, it's the tattoo." And mentally, you got to ask yourself, is this guy competent to be running our country? Is he competent to be making decisions? Is he competent, by the way, to even understand what's going on around him? We know from his first term that he would prefer his CIA briefings in crayon than the actual standard, brief that they give. He wanted it in a one-page bullet point format rather than fucking the standard format because he doesn't like to read. He doesn't like to get a lot of information one time. And now we're at a point where even when given minimal information, he can't comprehend it. So when you ask, what is that mentally? I don't think he's competent to be president.
See, I disagree. And again, knowing him for as long as I do, I mean, don't forget, I go back with him
Sure.
to 2005, and not just 2005, but I'm talking about every single day, 30 times a day, to be together in his office. I believe mentally he is competent. I think he's just morally bankrupt. I think he's looking at Abrigo Garcia as a prop, as a tool within which to keep his base energized for the grift. I don't like what he's doing. You clearly don't like what he's doing, but I don't believe that this is a mental thing. Now, yeah, you're right. He does not like to read. He doesn't. I've watched him ask for bullet points as opposed to reading the full briefing. He doesn't even like to accept the full briefing because, again, that takes up a lot of his time. And truth be told, he has other things that he would rather do than to, sit there and have somebody dictate to him. He likes to be the guy talking, right?
Right.
As opposed to the
I
guy
get that
who's
impression.
listening.
Yeah.
All right. And it's one of the serious problems that this administration has, like really serious problem, because you do want your president to be fully informed as what's going on. But I want to speak to you for a moment about it's not just Trump who's morally corrupt here. It's the supporters that were
The
there in
loyalists around us.
Michigan
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. As I watched them yesterday cheering, applauding, hooting and hollering when they showed that footage of the migrants being handed over to the El Salvadorian prison guards like slabs of meat. All right? What do you think that this applause says about this MAGA base as we are now 100 days into Trump's second term in 2025? You think that we crossed the line as a country?
Yes. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said morally bankrupt. I mean, I think this is 100% what apathy looks like in action, what apathy looks like in large numbers. We've seen it before in history. I don't have to sit here and make the parallels. Everybody's heard the parallels to 1930s Germany. And it's not just Germany, it's plenty of every time in human history where massive human rights violations have occurred is came through the dehumanization of entire populations of people. These people are convinced, as you mentioned earlier, they feel disenfranchised, and they're convinced that the source of their problems, the source of their poverty, the source of their everything, the source of their discomfort is this, group of people. The 14 characteristics of fascism. One of them is identifying a unifying enemy, an enemy of the people. Everybody has this one group of people who's our enemy, and Trump has done that through migrants. And it's terrifying to see it happen in real life. We've read about it in books. I've studied it. You studied it. We've studied it. But to watch it happen in real time is one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen. You mentioned them applauding these human beings being put into this torture gulag, and it's like there's no way that people are this morally out of touch that they would applaud that, but there is, and they did.
Well, look, it's not the first time, unfortunately, in at least modern history that we are seeing exactly this. My father is a Holocaust survivor from Poland, and I'm fortunate that he's still with us. But they applauded for Adolf Hitler as well, knowing what a morally bankrupt, individual that he is. I can't even call him a human being, just a morally bankrupt, person that he was. But here we are again. I don't understand, and I will never understand the need to marginalize another group of people in order to make yourself feel better about yourself.
Right.
If you want to feel better about yourself, do something about it. Maybe cut your hair. Maybe, if you don't like the way you look, maybe shave your beard, right? Maybe if you're heavy, put your fat ass onto a fucking treadmill and, eat a carrot instead of a fucking Big Mac. I mean, there are many things that a person can do in order to make themselves better. Educate yourself, read a book. I'm not even saying you got to go to school. There's a big difference. People are always making that mistake when they talk about being educated. Educated doesn't mean that you went to an Ivy League. It doesn't mean that you went to a 4-year college. It doesn't even mean that you finished high school. You could be educated, like in the movie Good Will Hunting, as he said to the kid from Harvard, in 5 years from now, there's a certainty that you're going to realize. And that certainty is that you could have gotten the same education that you paid $250,000 for $1.25 of late fees to your public library. And he's right. If you can read, if you want to read, if you like to read, you can educate yourself. You don't need to be sitting in a classroom to be educated. That's the point I'm trying to make. But these folks who
This
are
is the point.
applauding this MAGA bullshit.
This is the point that you and I
Go
agree.
ahead, Jolly.
We agree completely on, because even myself, see, the thing about it is, Michael, I don't know where you grew up, or your background in that regard, like your childhood, but my childhood, I grew up where MAGA is bred. I grew up where MAGA, you know what I mean, the proving ground of MAGA. All my family, they're all MAGA. And honest to God, the reason that I'm sitting here having a conversation with you and not wearing a red hat in Michigan applauding that same video, the only reason, the difference is I fucking read books. The difference is I joined the army and I got out of my little bubble and I met people that didn't look like me, think like me, that didn't talk like me. I was introduced to other ideas and watch this, listen to them and applied critical thought. And that there's a reason, the classic viral clip where Trump says that we love the poorly educated. That's MAGA in a fucking nutshell.
Yeah, you're right. Meanwhile, we've got polling that's showing Trump is severely underwater on every single major issue. The economy, jobs, immigration, crime, everything, trust in government. Yet, and even, imagine immigration, which is what he won on, yet his base remains hypnotized. What the hell are they seeing that the rest of us aren't?
The dog whistles, dude. Like, it's hard for me sometimes to explain. And I don't mean to you, I just mean like to people in general, but it's hard for me to explain sometimes. Like, I'm gonna use my cousin as an example. I have a cousin who, you know, will buy into MAGA wholesale, no matter what I throw at him, no matter how many counter talking points I give him, no matter how many facts I give him. And they stick to little things like, well, I don't believe in killing babies. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? This has nothing to do with abortion, dude. We're talking about putting people in foreign prisons, but somehow they've made this connection to what is their moral baseline to whatever Trump does. The end goal here, the end goal is to bring God back in government, to stop abortion, to stop trans people. Like they've tied their moral baseline to Trump being the guy who will implement it. And it makes no sense because none of it's connected. He's not doing any of that shit. And in the meantime, people are suffering. It's weird, and I get it only because I grew up in it. But they see it as, I might not agree with everything, or I might not fucking like what he's doing now, but in the end, the means will be justified because God will be back in schools, and abortion will be banned, and fucking gay marriage will be banned. They're going to come after gay marriage soon. It's coming. This is because that's always been the goal.
Yeah. Well, look, one of the things I've never understood, and I've had so many conversations, including conversations with evangelicals who I have been friends with for a very long time. I'm all for their belief in their God and their teachings. What I don't understand is why they think that they have the right within which to impose their belief on somebody else. Enjoy your teachings, lived by your teachings. Another one of the teachings, by the way, is to be kind and compassionate and show love to your fellow mankind, right? They certainly don't seem to be doing that. And so are you willing to turn around and to say to me that part doesn't apply because you need to offset it with something else? I just find them to be incredibly hypocritical. They're actually looking for, and by the way, Donald Trump is one of the least religious people on the planet. I mean, he basically did not grow up with religion in his household. His sisters have told me that in the past. Trump has told me that. I think he went once, to church for his confirmation. Does that, I'm not here to talk about his religion, but I don't appreciate when somebody wants to impose their religious conviction on someone else.
So, no, like what you just described, like, hey, I agree with your, religious views, but don't impose them on mine. Dude, we agree wholeheartedly. But this is, in the church, when I was a kid in church, we are taught there's a spiritual warfare. That's what we're taught. This is a very fundamental part of our teaching, that there's a spiritual warfare happening, that we're always in the end times, and that we, the people of the church, have to fight, in the army of God against this pending antichrist, and that for every inch of ground we give, the devil takes, and if we don't fight that, the devil's going to take over the world, and then our children are ruined. And so we have to fight this spiritual warfare to keep our children safe. And by the way, that spiritual warfare is every time when they made gay marriage legal, the church told us that's another inch of ground the devil gained. Whenever they took prayer out of school, that's an inch of ground the devil gained. This is what I mean. The problem is that Christians where I'm from, Southern Baptist, Pentecostal, Church of God, they're not taught what you just said, that, you have your religion and I have mine. We're taught the whole world's this big spiritual battleground and we got to fight for our God or the devil wins and my children's life's at stake. It's a cult mentality. This is 100% a cult. I have to. I'm taught, Michael, my God tells me I have to impose my God's will upon you, because if I don't, we're going to lose the spiritual battle, then my children are at risk. It's cult. It's a cult. I don't know how else to explain it.
So let me ask you this then. How do we even begin to pull people out of a cult like this when facts, let's take polling, job numbers, the video footage just doesn't break through? You ever wake up after a week of nonstop political chaos, look at yourself in the mirror and think, damn, I aged like a president in his second term. Yeah, well, me too. Long days, longer news cycles, and a diet that consists mostly of rage and revenge will do just that to you. That's why I gave Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet a shot. And let me tell you, it's like a full body reset without the misery of actually fasting. Prolon's a plant-based nutrition program of soups, snacks, teas that keeps your body in a fasting state while still feeding you. It works at the cellular level to jumpstart rejuvenation and help your cells act like they've just had a motivational speaker and a green juice. It's real science. It's real results. And now, boom, they've rolled out the next gen 5-day program. And now, boom, they've rolled out the next gen 5-day program. It's 100% organic soups and teas, richer flavor, and ready to eat meals. So even a certain president couldn't screw it up. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by legitimate top medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. Look, I did the 5-day program, and no joke, I felt better, lighter, cleaner. Now I'm all in for next gen. And here's the deal for my Mea Culpa listeners. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new next gen at special savings. Prolon is offering Mea Culpa with Michael Cohen listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. So go now and visit prolonlife.com/Mea Culpa. That's PROLONLIFE.com/Mea Culpa to claim your 15% discount as well as your bonus gift. That's prolonlife.com/Mea Culpa. Give your body a break. It deserves it. Believe me. This episode of Mea Culpa is brought to you by Graza, my new favorite olive oil. It's fresh, it's never blended, and it comes from a single type of olive, the Picual, straight out of Jaén, Spain, where over half of the world's olive oil is produced. So why Graza? Single origin goodness, that's why. Only one olive from one region. No mysterious blends. That means a traceable, a fresher product without mixing in any low grade or unknown oils. It's super fun. It has squeeze and spray bottles too. So there's no more messy tins or drippy spouts. Just aim, squeeze, and go. I mean, there are 3 types for any task that you have. One, they have something called frizzle. That's their newest, with a higher 490-degree Fahrenheit smoke point, which is perfect for frying, crisping, or grilling. Sizzle at 410 degrees Fahrenheit, which is an everyday cooking oil for roasting, marinating, and sauteing. Then they have something called drizzle, which is a bold, a punchy finishing oil that you sprinkle on your salads, you dip your bread in, or even you top it off on your ice cream. Look, let me be clear. My daughter is the actual chef in the house, and she uses olive oil on everything from pastas to preparing steak. I mean, not only does this cook well, it smells delicious. Plus, as a healthy eater, Graza's extra virgin oils, they are loaded with those heart and brain friendly polyphenols. So it's good for you. Look, so here's what you get. You get 10% off your first order on Graza's site. But I personally suggest grabbing the trio. That's all the 3 squeezy bottles, the sizzle, the frizzle, and the drizzle, so that you're set for every style of cooking. So head right now to graza.co and use code Cohen to get 10% off of Trio, which includes, again, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle, and get to cooking your next chef-quality meal. Again, head to Graza, Graza.co, and use code Cohen, Cohen, to get 10% off the Trio. And I love saying it, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle. So get cooking now. You are seeing with your own eyes. You are hearing with your own ears. I get it. I get the religious connection. I do. I grew up in a yeshiva, right? So I get it. I just don't understand this. And the question I really want to ask you, is this still political, or do you think it's something deeper?
That's a fucking amazing question. It's something deeper. And I think that, the common sense people, the people that do read books, the educated, it makes too much sense to say, hey, you're looking at it. Don't you want to see the truth? It's too deep for them. And how do you pull people out of a cult, man? I wish I knew the answer. I don't think until these same people are kicking down the doors of MAGA households, until poverty has ran amok, until store shelves are empty, until people are getting kicked out of their homes, until red hats are no longer your safe space. Until that happens, I don't think they break away from the cult. Yeah. I unfortunately don't think there's anything that we can do to get people to wake up until they are fundamentally fucked. I don't know the better word. Until it's happening to them. I don't think they break away. I don't think they snap out of it and say, because by the way, they got into it too easy. QA9 and that whole shit in 2016, it sucked them all in too easy because they were ripe for it. They were ripe for it. So until they are suffering the consequences of what they're voting for, they're not going to realize what they voted for.
But they are. That's the whole point. They're already seeing prices rise. They don't have the money for it. They need to be concerned that mom or dad or grandma or grandpa isn't going to be able, because Social Security now is on the chopping block, won't be able to buy their insulin and buy their food and pay for rent and so on. And that becomes a family affair. It's really tough. I think the answer, I hate to say it, I think the answer is mandatory book reading. And I don't care what book that you read. There was a great book that I read when I was in prison called Educated by Tara Westover. It is an absolutely fabulous book about a girl who is evangelical, and they do not believe in women being educated. The father would have her working in his scrapyard. Her job was not to be educated, not to be snarky or snippy, but to be obedient and learn how to cook and clean and stuff like that. But she's just a brilliant, brilliant woman. It's a memoir. It's a true story, and ultimately becomes, I think, like a Harvard professor. And so on, despite her father constantly trying to hold her down. I'm all for religion, and I love the concept of religion. It's supposed to give us morality, spirituality, to make you believe that there's something higher than you, something higher than Donald J. Trump. But that's not what they're doing. And when you have somebody, I'm going to give you an example, Caroline Leavitt, right? That's
Right.
Trump's press puppet, right? His press secretary. And she stands there at the podium with a gigantic cross around her neck, looking all, coiffed and so on. And then she lies like she's paid to lie by the fib, right? How dangerous is it when these blatant falsehoods from the podium in the White House, in the briefing room, go unchecked by half the media and rewarded by the base?
Bingo. That exactly. It goes back to what I said earlier. Misinformation and disinformation is the gasoline that fuels this entire fucking cult. They have to, I hate to tie it back to religion. I'm not trying to do that, but when you're in a religion that requires that you take things without evidence, and then you grow your whole life up believing the fundamental basis of your life is this thing you can't even prove is real, then being told that this other thing is real without evidence, not a big leap. It's not a problem. Being told that his knuckles have MS-13 on it, even though it's clearly fucking Photoshop, not a problem to believe that. That's more evidence than they have of their God. So what I'm saying is, like, Caroline Leavitt just says what they want to hear, and they eat it up. They love that. And like you said, the media is not checking it. It's this giant echo chamber. I talk to my family and stuff back home, and the things they say, I haven't even heard no one say this, because it turns out it's being said on these far right news outlets that I don't listen to, and they're echoed around. And then Caroline Leavitt goes there and she echoes it, and Trump echoes it on Truth, Not So Truth Social, Temu, Twitter, and it confirms them that they believe it all. They eat it up. It's confirmation bias at its best. And like you said, they're already feeling it. I know they're feeling it, but they're not feeling it. I mean, I think people, I hate to say this. I don't want to believe it, but I believe it. I think that people are going to have to literally be the greater depression before they realize we've been had. It's the wildest shit to me. I grew up in the mountains, and we were told, people from New York, a bunch of city slickers, they can't understand us. We're hardworking country folk. And they've cast their lot with a billionaire playboy from New York. Like, what the fuck? So I don't think until people are in the streets in fucking lines waiting for soup in a bowl that they even understand it.
And even then, there's a chance that they won't understand it. They are so Jim Jonesed into this cult of personality. And I get it. Look, let me be clear. I was there. I helped to create the playbook of lies that, Trump used in 2016 in order to win the first term. I get it. And the truth is, he could be insanely charming, but there comes a point in time when you have to, as I did, say, you know what, enough becomes enough. I grew up in a certain way, coming from a household where racism was not allowed, right? It just wasn't allowed. My father, who had experienced the worst racism, at least for the last 100 years, it just wasn't in our DNA, right? I'm just watching now as people who Trump's supporters despise are actually wearing the same red MAGA hat, carrying the same MAGA flag, and talking about a Trump 2028 presidency the same way that that white Christian nationalist male is talking about it. And that is not something that I could understand. I'm dying for somebody to give me an explanation as to what is wrong with these people when they cannot see for themselves that this is one gigantic grift.
Yeah, 100%. It's a great, listen, like, there's two things at odds here. Like, Donald Trump slipped and fell. I've said this 1,000 times. Donald Trump slipped and fell into the position of being the leader of the basement brigade. But separate from that, the basement brigade has been being cultivated since post-Civil War. We didn't hold the South accountable after the Civil War. We went through this whole thing of let's reconcile with our brothers and all this shit. And then we pulled the federal troops out of the South, and not to go into this big long speech, but the United Daughters of the Confederacy were born early 19th century, resurrected the statues, resurrected the Confederate flag, rewrote the textbooks. You said earlier, mandatory book writing. The United Daughters of the Confederacy rewrote the textbooks. We changed what people were learning because we understand that information's how you control the masses. We started saying things like it wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. This flag isn't hate, it's heritage. And this is beaten to your head from the time you're knee-high to a grasshopper. It's all thanks to us not holding the Confederacy accountable. It's all thanks to the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And MAGA is the 2020, 2016, 2020s rebranding of the Confederate States of America. You can draw a straight line. I mean, I could spend 30 minutes explaining. We don't got 30 minutes. You can draw a straight line from the end of the Confederacy to MAGA. It is the same exact group of people. They've been looking for a new leader since 1865. And Donald Trump slipped and fell and accidentally became their leader vis-a-vis Steve Bannon, who helped him usher in, hey man, just fucking tell the basement brigade what they want to hear. And they'll fucking chomp at your feet. I did a TED talk on this 3 years ago, and in my TED talk, this was my opening explanation. White supremacy, or Donald Trump didn't usher in white supremacy ushered in Donald Trump. It was these two forces that just so happened to meet each other. And fucking Hollywood couldn't write a better storyline because there's such opposite antithetical forces that have now aligned. One's a giant never-ending grift, and one's a never-ending mission to the South will rise again. And somehow they've married, and it's the fucking oddest couple in the world. But that's where we are. The Confederate States of America, aka now called MAGA, have decided that their leader is Donald Trump, who is in no way associated with this ideology or grew up near it, whatever, because he's just a billionaire playboy from New York. But he's their leader, and they're going to stand by him because they've been having a mission since the end of the Civil War that the South will rise again. And that's where we are. That's what's happened.
So let me ask you, because you've called out white supremacy and systemic hate. Why do you think that Trump's movement thrives on dehumanizing migrants, dehumanizing people, mocking the vulnerable, and celebrating cruelty as strength?
Because new ideas are not in the playbook of white supremacy. Bigotry is just last year's fucking shit repeated, right? I often make the joke, the difference between a bigot and a parrot is that one has a small brain and no original thoughts and just repeats everything they hear around them. The other one's a fucking bird. And so they don't have new ideas. What you just described, every little bullet point you just described, is exactly how, as you mentioned, the Holocaust happened. It's exactly how Jim Crow America happened. It's exactly how the slave trade happened. Don't let us not forget that Hitler, when deciding how to execute his plan, studied America and how America dehumanized black people, and how America was so successful in Jim Crow and so successful in the slave trade, for how he wrote his playbook for how he implemented it in 1930s Germany. So, people forget that part. Everybody says we're just like 1930s Germany. 1930s Germany was just like 1830s America. That's where they learned it from. Bigotry doesn't have new ideas. White supremacy doesn't have a new plot. This has always been the plot. Dehumanize, marginalize, divert the blame to everybody but us. You know, this whole thing, again, I don't want to go on this long history lesson, but right after Bacon's Rebellion, we were tired of poor people. Rich people were tired of poor people rising up and rebelling. So we made artificial enemies. We made artificial, groups of people that you could point your blame at, and not us, not the rich people. And that worked. And so it's always worked. So they're just fucking doing it again. If Donald Trump and his billionaire friends wants to do things, they need to do it while you hate migrants, while you blame it on everything else but them. He just put a Temu tweet out today saying, yes, the prices are going up. Stick it out, buddy. I promise you, right around the corner, shit's going back down. When my magical tariffs work, they don't. It's never going to work. But they don't care because they think that their problems are these imaginary migrants that are coming here and doing all this violence. Not true. That all these communities are living off welfare and sucking off the government. The biggest group of people living off welfare and sucking off the government are the fucking billionaires. But they can't let you see that.
Yeah, amen to that. Meanwhile, look, Trump has been on a binge of executive orders. His executive order binge is unprecedented in American history. No other president has governed so autocratically out of the gate or during their term. You think that this is incompetence? You think it's laziness? Or do you think that it's a deliberate dismantling of our democratic norms?
The latter. It is 100% intentional. Steve Bannon's philosophy of flood the zone, that's part of it. But also the idea of he don't have any respect for the legislative branch, clearly has no respect for the judicial branch. I mean, we've already started arresting judges, for God's sake. So why wait for laws to pass the traditional way? Why wait for the legislative branch to introduce a bill and for it to go through both chambers of Congress and then come? Why, when you can just sign a fucking executive order and do whatever the hell you want? And then by the time the checks and balances that are supposed to stop you kick in, it's too late because you've dismantled those two through these same executive orders. Listen, I talked a minute ago about how Trump and MAGA or the Confederate met by accident. Trump also did another thing by accident that I think we need to talk about. He exposed the absolute gaping holes in our own system.
Yep.
This system only works if everybody agrees to the rules. Bingo. Right. And as soon as Trump was like, no, fuck that. I don't want to play by the rules. We are in complete utter disarray because we don't know what the fuck to do now. Because now he's not agreeing to the rules of the system. I heard a great analogy before. You've probably heard it yourself. You don't play chess with a pigeon because they're just going to knock all the pieces over, shit on the board, and strut around like they won anyway. And that's what we're doing. We're sitting there at the chessboard and we're trying to play by the rules of chess. And Donald Trump's just strutting around the board, shitting on it, knocking all the pieces over. If we don't agree to the rules of the system, is there really a system? If we don't agree to the rules of the Constitution, is there really a Constitution?
So it's funny that you say that, because as somebody who had studied in high school, right, the Constitution, in college, when I studied law and government, when I went to law school, studied the Constitution, I always saw the Constitution as this document prepared by our founding fathers. That was this ever-growing, ever-evolving, this breathing document that was written by not smart men, geniuses. I used to sometimes think that they weren't even really human, that they were like from a Star Trek episode, that they were from another fucking time and dimension, because it is a document that has sustained our experiment for 250 years. Not just sustained our experiment. America is the beacon of the world. Whether anybody else wants to say they are, we are economically, right, militarily, intellectually, we really are the beacon of the world. More comes out of America than anywhere else, and we are a young country. Well, you're right. Trump turned around, looked at this document that I have had so much respect for my entire life, and he said, yeah, I can fuck that up. I
He
could,
said,
I could break that First Amendment, your freedom of speech. I found a tool that gives me insights to create a healthy metabolism for my body. And it's managed to improve other aspects of my life as well. And it's called Lumen. So what's Lumen? Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs. And it'll give you a tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, and even stress management. So look, here's how Lumen works. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. And you can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals so that you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Look, I'm not a kid anymore, and my metabolism, well, it's just not as fast as it used to be. So staying healthy and fit, it's much harder. And anything I can do to gain an advantage, well, look, I'm interested. And here's why. First, your metabolism. It's your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food that you eat into fuel that keeps you going for the day. And because your metabolism is at the center of everything that your body does, optimal metabolic health, it translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, and more. And Lumen, it gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. And to the women out there, it'll also help you track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so that you too can keep your energy and stave off cravings. So look, take the next step right now to improving your health and go to lumen.me/Cohen to get 20% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/Cohen for 20% off your purchase. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Let me show you, Michael, just since you're my favorite guy today. Let me show you what I'm going to do to you. And had me unconstitutionally remanded, sent back to prison, placed into solitary confinement because I refused to sign away my First Amendment constitutional right off of a counterfeit federal location monitoring agreement. That, my friend, is one fucking hell of a trick. And what he did is he's not dumb. And people who keep saying, oh, he has dementia, he's dumb. No, he's not. He may not be red, but he is as sly as a fox, and he's more devilish than the devil himself, because he knew that whether I stayed in or I got out, which I did on a habeas petition, he knew that that was going to be a litmus test. And now he was going to be able to use the result in order to do it again and again and again. And we're seeing him doing it now. Maybe not to an American citizen, though he just locked up, or they tried to lock up a judge, but they're doing it now to these students, to these immigrant students that are here based upon what he terms illegal protest. The problem, though, nobody knows what an illegal protest is except for Donald Trump. And that, by the way, changes from minute to minute.
No, dude, you hit it now. Listen, 2016 to 2020, his first term. I'm gonna throw something at you, and it's gonna sound crazy when I first say it. So let me explain it, because I promise I'm not trying to go where you think I'm going. I have a theory that if Donald Trump wins in 2020, let me be clear, he didn't win. I'm not saying the election was rigged, because people try to twist words. He lost. He fucking lost the election. But had he won, I actually think he goes away in 2024 and we don't have half the problems we have right now. I think that in 2016 to 2020, he figured out how much shit he can get away with. He did. This motherfucker never planned to win in 2016. That was a complete fucking accident. He didn't think He in his own brain didn't think he's going to win this election. So then he shows up to the office. Fuck, I did win. What do I do? And he's bumbling around. He's trying to figure shit out. He's firing people every 2 fucking weeks. He's locking his attorneys up. He's just doing shit. And it all culminates. It culminates in 2021 where he literally, and he knew what he was doing. Like you said, he's not dumb. He knew what he was doing. He literally incited a fucking riot to try to overthrow the goddamn government. And so when he came back in 2024 and he won, when he entered office in 2025, he had the lessons of 2016 and 2020. And that was this: don't put people around me that are going to tell me no. Put people around me that are loyal and nothing else. I can get away with more than you think I can. I tried to overthrow the government, and I'm the president again. I have the mandate of the people. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And if people think that he's really not going to try to run for a 3rd term, you're delusional. He's going to try it. He believes in his heart he can get away with it. And I think that this 2nd term of Donald Trump is so fucking dangerous because he learned the lessons from his 1st term. And so when he says, I want to run a 3rd term, that should tell you his intentions pure and clear. And the people that are around him that are supporting this shit, the people that were at CPAC with the fucking booth set up for how we can make Donald Trump a president for a 3rd term, these are dangerous motherfuckers that are allowing him or that are backing up his ideology. This guy has intent. This is intentional. And he is intentionally ignoring the Constitution. He is intentionally ignoring our system of government. He's intentionally ignoring the judicial and legislative branch. And he has one goal and one goal in mind: absolute power, consolidation into the executive branch, and him being the law.
Yeah, look, going back to that ABC Terry Moran interview, Terry asks Trump a very basic, a very straightforward question about due process. And Trump practically bit his head off. I mean, I've seen Trump angry. This was just about the start of him really beginning to get fucking pissed. You think that this administration even believes in the rule of law anymore? Or is this just Fox News cosplay turned federal policy?
The latter. It's 100%. Listen, you talked about him being angry. He was angry he lost 2020. He was embarrassed. He don't lose anything. That's his facade he's created. I'm the winner, Trump. I win all. I'm the winner. I win everything. Then he fucking lost. He lost in big fashion. He lost, and everybody saw it. And then they had the fucking audacity to do the thing that's never happened to him in his life. They indicted him. They held him accountable for his fucking actions. He's never been held fucking accountable. So he lost the election, and he's embarrassed by losing. So now he says, I didn't lose. It's rigged. He fucking gets indicted. This motherfucker's never been indicted. He's never been held account to law. And he was facing, I think at some point in his head, he thought, man, I might really go to fucking prison. And so when he came back in 2025, fuck the rule of law, fuck America, fuck the Constitution. This is vengeance. This is me doing what I want. This is me getting my way. This is me surrounding myself with people who are going to fucking say yes to me. And in his mind, it's the United States of Trump. Remember, he renamed the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf America. This is the United States of Trump in his brain.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then. Do you think that Trump's base, you think that they actually want authoritarianism? I mean, is that the appeal now?
Yes.
Strength
Yes.
without accountability, cruelty without consequence?
They believe it's a dictatorship for thee and not a dictatorship for me, so it doesn't scare them. I stood, myself and Walter Masterson, Walter,
Very well.
Whenever Trump lost the election and they had the first Million MAGA march in November of 2020, myself and Walter, we dressed up in to look like Trumpers, and we went there to interview them, kind of behind the scenes. And then we were there to troll them, but also to find out what they're really saying. And then we went to the December stop, the very first Stop the Steal march. These are the 2 marches that led up to January 6th. And both myself and Walter noticed that something really fucking startled us. We weren't expecting it. There was people, this is in 2020 now. There were people that were wearing shirts, multiple people. It said Trump 2020, Trump 2024,
Yep.
Trump 2028, Trump 2032. And then they were on the megaphones saying Trump now, Trump forever, Trump now, Trump forever. We flat out asked it. I have it on recording. Walter has it on recording. We asked him, what if Donald Trump was the president for the rest of your life? They said, I'll be okay with that because we need somebody up there to fix all this shit. And he's the king. He's going to fix it all. And this was in 2020. It wasn't 2024. It's 2020. So do they want authoritarianism? You goddamn right they do. Let's not mince words. They want authoritarianism. They don't care. We keep telling these MAGA cultists like, hey man, you said you care about the Constitution. You call yourself a patriot. We might as well stop saying that because they said it, but they never meant it. They've always been okay with him being the last president of the United States. They've always been okay with him being the king. They're okay with the dictatorship because they're dumb enough to think that it won't ever affect them.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's going to affect them just as everything else. I mean, look, despite mass layoffs by Doge, inflation spikes, recession fears. I mean, when you have people who gave Trump millions of dollars for his campaign, and I'm talking about like the highest level, like the Jamie Dimons of the world, telling you that there's a likelihood of more than 55, 60% that this country is going to go into a recession. Trump, when he hears this, does what Trump always does. He blames everyone but himself. Right now, it's Jerome Powell. All right? It has nothing to do with it. He's not listening to me. All right? If he listened to me, interest rates would go lower. We would not even be talking about recessions and so on. How do his supporters still buy this bullshit? I mean, I don't understand this. Where's the personal responsibility that they love to preach about?
Because he's playing 5D chess, because everybody else is playing checkers, and he's got a plan, and he's so smart, and he's a savvy businessman, and it might not make sense right now, but you know, and he's got to beat the deep state, and the damn Democrats are working against him, and it's just recycled. They got a Rolodex of fucking bullshit excuses they use to give them a free pass. And it's the same conversation we've been having this whole time is they don't give a fuck. They're in a cult. They don't care. They think the ends will justify the means.
Yeah, well, we know that it doesn't. But here's another crazy thing, too. So while all this shit's happening, and I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. I don't care, white, black, brown. Makes no difference to me. You know, male, female, you know, straight, gay. None of this makes any difference to me. All right? We're all American. And I can't understand why an American ever would want to see a king. And to me, that just drives me crazy why they think that authoritarianism is going to do something good for them. And while all this shit is happening, I keep saying to myself, where are the fucking Democrats? All right, now I know that I'm out there with folks like Jim Acosta on Substack, Lev Parnas, Malcolm Nance, Joe Walsh, former Republican, right? Representative from Ohio, people like Don Lemon, yourself. And by the way, got to get you on my Substack too. You know, where are the Democrats? Where is Joe Biden to come out on a daily basis? Imagine if this was Biden and Trump switch places. Imagine Trump every single day out there beating down on Joe Biden for what he's doing. Democrats don't know how to fight Trump. And the worst part, they're so fucking arrogant and they're so myopic in their playbook. They don't even reach out to the people like myself that know how to fight Trump, that know how to hold him accountable. Fuck, I'm the only person that's held him accountable 3 times. My action against him, right? And then the civil case and then the criminal case. But they don't reach out. They're so obnoxious with this. And they think that they got this, that they're going to wait for Trump to screw up so bad that the midterm elections are going to go all Democrat. It'll be a blue tsunami. And I keep warning people, if that's your strategy on defeating Trump, good luck. And from now on, I want you to refer to him as King Donald.
Listen, this is where we take a moment and we say, support David Hogg. Because what David Hogg is saying and what David Hogg is doing inside the DNC is 1,000% the answer. Because everything you just fucking said about the Democrats not having a backbone, about the Democrats not knowing how to fight, about the Democrats playing by this set of fucking rules that don't work, 100% spot on. I agree with you.
So I
and David Hogg,
I happen to like David. I like David.
Yeah.
I've had him on my podcast. I think he's a very smart young man. Here's the only difference between you and me. He doesn't know how to fight Trump. He knows that what the Democrats are doing is wrong. He doesn't have a clue how to fight him. He's never met the guy. He doesn't understand him. And instead of reaching out to people who do,
right,
he goes right into the same trailer as the Democratic Party, right to the same skiff. They close the door and it's like, we'll figure this out ourselves. You can't figure this guy out.
I agree with that. So let me be clear. I don't think that just what David's doing is the only answer. And when you talk about fighting Trump, I do see that as something separate. But I also see what David's doing as something that's been needed for a long time.
Yes.
And that's a different, we have to, the Democratic Party, this idea of seniority, this idea of, fucking, you've been doing it for a while, so you're next in line is bullshit. Either you produce or you get the fuck out. Right. And we need new progressive ideas. When the right goes more right, the left must go more left in a two-party system. So that's all I mean. All I mean is this revamping, this shaking up, this fucking, breaking away from traditional Democratic Party. So fucking glad to see it. Should have happened 8 years ago. Should have happened when we lost in 2016. Should have happened probably before that. So that part is what I'm getting at. As far as fighting Trump, bro, I've been fucking saying this for so goddamn long. Punch back.
Yeah.
Fucking call it to the floor. Dismantle his lies. Combat the disinformation. Be as loud as they are. Be as fucking as adamant as they are. Stop. I watch so often the Democratic Party listen to lies being spread. And you're right. They sit back and they're like, well, eventually the people will figure it out. We're going to be the ones with good manners in the room. Fuck that, dude.
Right. You see how I can get you all riled up? What I want, truthfully, is I want 75 million jollies. That's what I want, right? And the Democratic Party can do it. Not Chuck Schumer bent over the side of a podium, not Nancy Pelosi. They're great. Don't get me wrong. They were great. Now you need people like AOC, even though I find she's way too far left for my liking. But there are people like Jasmine Crockett. You need people with a big mouth who are smart, who can actually talk to the American people. But, Jolly, the hour goes by really, unfortunately, too fast here on Mea Culpa. So my last question to you, what gives you hope? What gives you hope, if anything, when half of this country is cheering on cruelty, ignoring facts, and begging for a king instead of a president?
You and I having this conversation, and let's be honest, you have a massive platform. I'm familiar with your podcast. Fucking people listen to it. The Midas Touch Network, people listen to it. Myself, I got a social media platform. People listen to me. What gives me hope is that we still have a voice. We still have a platform. We're still calling it out. We need messengers, not martyrs. We need an alliance that is willing to fight against what's happening on the right. And that gives me hope. I'm going to tell you when my hope dies. My hope dies when we stop fighting. My hope dies when we stop talking. My hope dies when we stop having platforms. My hope dies when the only voices out there are the voices of the authoritarian, autocratic, wannabe dictator regime of King Trump. So what gives me hope is what we're doing. So my message to everybody is don't shut up. Get in the streets. Get on social media. Speak out at work. Speak out at home. Use your fucking voice. Silence is compliance, and propaganda is the tool of the regime. Fight it. And like you said, read a fucking book. Don't be fucking victim to misinformation. Our voice is quite literally our weapon right now in this point in time.
Amen to that. Jolly, so good to see you, my brother. I plan on joining you on this journey, and I'm thankful to have you on my journey as well.
Thanks for having me on, Michael, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more.
Oh, you know it. I'll see you soon, brother.